Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to the Forgotten Realms. Today we focus on the Zhentarim, an organisation known as the Black Network that has existed for hundreds upon hundreds of years. Testament to its strength, its ingenuity, its tenacity, its persistence, considering its enemies have often decried it or lambasted it as dull and predictable. Somehow the Zhentarim has existed for centuries and continues to do so and expands in strength. At the same time, it may lose parts of its southern border, it will strengthen on the north, or lose its east, it will strengthen on the west. The Zhentarim is a network that extends throughout Faerun, like veins or vines that entangle and entice and lure people back to the home, the heart, Zhentarim Keep. The Zhentarim is not merely based out of one area. They have long held Zhentarim Keeps, the Citadel of the Raven, Darkhold, and other such locations in the Moonsea region, and often expand beyond there, but they're more than just an invasive force. Well, the Zhentarim, or rather the Zhentilar, who are the standing army of Zhentarim Keep, have joined in wars against the Tweegan Horde and Cormyr and the Dales and many other regions at their borders. They're more interested in insinuating themselves. They're more interested in control. And it is easier to control and apply tyranny to an area that you have planted agents, where you have planted some of your most adept mages, your mercenaries, your hired hands. The most adept Zhentarim agent is not going to announce himself as working for the Zhentarim. Far from it. The Zhentarim are very skilled at subterfuge, at misleading their enemies until it's too late. And perhaps this is why people see them as thuggish, as simply criminal, because that is the front the Zhentarim want you to see. Its rulers have ranged from archmagi to chosen of unholy deities to beholders to undead monstrosities and other malevolent entities. That is the common ground. They are all malevolent. None of them intend for the Zhentarim to just allow their neighbours to go on about their lives quite happily. No, because the Zhentarim can always expand. While the Zhentilar are the standing army, as said, the Zhentarim is the Black Network itself. All of its agents, all of its mercenaries, all of those who would swear fealty to the Zhents. The Zhents being the people of Zhentarim Keep and members of both organisations, Zhentarim and Zhentilar. What does this mean for those who live under the Zhentarim in terms of their rulership? Well, they're not necessarily just dupes or idiots or slaves. Many of them are just people who do not care overmuch for the philosophy of life. They do not mind living under an autocracy. In fact, they desire it. They require order, they require rules, they require tyranny, because that is the ultimate in sloth, in a sense. If you don't need to worry about who is in charge, and you can just focus on your craft, on your foci, if you are a mage or you're a priest, your researchers, well, that takes a weight off. There is never, or very rarely in somewhere like Zhentarim Keep, anarchy, because order is so finely clamped down. And in that regard, if you are an artisan, a craftsman, then you could do very well. So while certainly there are some who live begrudgingly under Zhentarim rule, there are others that practically flourish, and that is how the worship of a god such as Bane or Cyric or Shah or Leviatar or Lovitar manages to flourish as well, because you see the wonderful things that have been granted to you through worship, through tacit worship, or rather begging for mercy from these so-called evil deities, by pledging them fealty, by allowing them rulership over you, by not making a fuss and turning a blind eye to when a crime takes place in the room next door. You are holding up the Black Network and its gods. And it worships widely many gods, although Bane has quite often been its figurehead, to the point where at one point the Zhentarim were using Bane's symbol, and when Cyric was, of course, in charge of Bane's divine portfolios, because Bane was dead for a time as a figure of worship, Cyric, his priests, the Cyricists, applied a different kind of pressure to those of Zhentarim Keep. And the people in Zhentarim Keep, the vast majority, were unhappy with this because they had grown used to the tyranny of Bane and the Baneites and his priesthood. They do not want change. They want to keep expanding in the way that they have been. In that respect, they are fervent traditionalists. They know what they like. They know what they want. They do not want the order shaken up. And so when all this chaos arrived, along with this unmitigated evil that Cyric preaches, there were inquisitions. There were people whose backs were not only put up, but they fled the keep and they joined the keep's former enemies in order to take the bastion of the Zhentarim back for when Iactu Zvim and ultimately Bane arose again to act as the primary deity of the Zhentarim. The Zhentarim, though, are, as I pointed out before, widely spread. They are a network. They control caravan routes. They control entire mercantile operations. There are some that claim that the Iron Throne, another mercantile operation, is beholden to the Zhentarim through secret shadow deals and the like. The Great Road through Anorok, the huge desert, is known to be controlled by the Zhentarim. Why is that? It's because other caravan routes have been disrupted by Zhentarim agents. They may not be clad in black with yellow Zs across their fronts, but they are Zhentarim agents because they want to have the only safe road. And if you travel that road and you pay your toll to the Zhentarim, likelihood is they're not going to subjugate you any further. They just want a stranglehold on all movement, on all freedom, because that is how the Zhentarim profits. That doesn't mean that occasionally they won't pay their own road agents, their own bandits, to then beset one of these caravans if they've not paid the correct fealty. Occasionally they need to make lessons. And from that respect you can see that they are extortionists on a par with the greatest of organised criminal gangs in our world. They will allow people to migrate to Zhentarim Keep, set up a business, and of course once they've done so they'll say, well, crime in Zhentarim Keep, whilst being clamped down, does exist, and when it does exist it's very violent and merciless. So providing you shove a few coins in the direction of the Zhentarim, then, well, you won't get your store raided, your house will not be burnt down, your wife will not be sold into slavery, your children will not disappear overnight. Are you really going to risk not paying the Zhentarim their due, along with other rent that goes up the track towards Lord Chess and Manchun and other rulers of the keep? Are you really going to take that risk? Because the Zhentarim are merciless. Why would they show mercy? Mercy is a weakness. This is not to say that every single individual who operates under the Black Network is going to pick the petals off of a flower with malevolent glee. Not every single member of the Zhentarim is going to want to kick an animal or torture a child. Far from it. Individuals, as a general rule, still have a moral compass, even if they worship a so-called evil deity. But when these mercenaries get together, when these Zhents operate as one, well, it's very scary when evil permeates an organisation, because when one person does something, if they command everyone else to do it, there will be so much fear in the hearts of those beneath them, they will all do evil. Because they need to keep face, they need to keep status, and they cannot have their loyalty called into question. Some of the greatest crimes on the battlefield, in invasions, in Faerun, have been perpetrated by the Zhents. by individuals who, if you knew them from the tavern or on the road, you would find perfectly amenable, perfectly friendly, but there is a dead look to their eyes, to the Zents, because they have seen things and they have perpetrated things that are quite horrific because their masters demand that they do. It's called dirtying them up. It is the old way of routing out traitors from an organised group of 30 Zents, 10 of which are accused as traitors, whether there is evidence of it or not. Maybe someone even admits to it as a means of contrition and points out his co-conspirators. The 10 traitors are then taken out of the room. The 20 remaining are then armed with weapons and told they must execute the traitors. By doing that, they have muddied the waters, they have dirtied the Zents, you have proven your loyalty to the organisation, and now you can't go back because you've already done it. You've already killed your friend, that person you've served with on so many missions, because they may not be loyal. There's an air of paranoia. There is, of course, an air of tyranny. There is a great air of fear within the Zhentarim and without it. And the way it has stood for so long is because it is not an uncontrollable mess, where so many fascistic dictatorships, autocracies, collapse under their own weight due to the madness of their rulers. Those who hold the reins of the Zhentarim have always been in control. Why? Because the gods will it to be such, and because the real controllers would have it no other way. They do not want the Zhentarim collapsing. It is far too profitable organisation, both in wealth and information, control of landmass and people. Manchun, perhaps Elminster's greatest and most persistent recurring foe, or at least so Manchun would probably like you to believe, is an archwizard whose power is nigh peerless. His intelligence is up there with a demigod, he would claim. He is not going to allow this organisation that he has built brick by brick, bone by bone, body by body, to collapse under some unpredictable leader, some chaotic mage or priest. There is a reason it did not operate at its best under Cyric. And that's because Manchun and Sul Chembril were chafing at the bit. They were not used to such chaos. Zhentarim are one of the most malevolent and dangerous organisations in the Forgotten Realms, because they can be anywhere. They're not just going to say that they are Zents, but when it's too late, when the point of no return has been passed, they will explain to you that all this time you've been working for the Black Network, all of the things that you've done have gone to benefit the Black Network, and they will thank you. They will offer you membership in the Black Network, which you've practically already signed in blood through the deeds that you have perpetrated. Fortunately, there are many good organisations to oppose them, and yet it never seems to be enough with the Zhentarim.